So the Rugby Championship 2022 is over. New Zealand triumph once again. Let's get into some of the things I think we learnt from this competition. And I thought you were going to score.
Ask a better question, you get a better answer.
Hi guys, welcome back. So South Africa couldn't quite get enough points in their win over Argentina. I watched it on replay a bit too late for a match report, so I'm going into this video straight away. 10 things I think I learnt from watching the Rugby Championship 2022. These are just my ideas from what I picked up. There's loads of other things you could have picked up. So feel free to agree, disagree and put your own in the comments. I love to read all those comments. And also a big thank you to all the people that watch the videos. Clearly I'm not from one of these Southern Hemisphere teams, so I appreciate you watching the views from the Northern Hemisphere guy. I really like you reading all those comments like I said. So let's get into 10 things I think I learned from watching the Rugby Championship. And number one is, what's great is everyone can beat everyone, and it's not just a massive upset. I think if teams play really well to the top of their ability, they can absolutely beat everyone in this competition, which is what you want in a competition. And it's really making exciting news for the end of year internationals, that is for sure. I mean, Argentina, they beat Australia and New Zealand. Australia beat South Africa. I mean, there's no doubt that New Zealand and South Africa are the strongest teams, but like I said, if Australia and Argentina can play to the best of their ability, they can be superb as well. Point 2. New Zealand are still the top dogs in the Rugby Championship. They have been since it turned into the Rugby Championship and Argentina were introduced. They won a staggering 8 out of 10 championships, which is amazing in any team sport, to be fair. And considering they were definitely probably the most vulnerable they've been going into this championship, to turn it around and win yet again, that was impressive. Now, point 3 is sticking with New Zealand, and one question I had before the tournament was, do they actually have the raw talent they used to have? Many were saying no, I was certainly questioning it, but I think we've seen when they put it together correctly, there is an awful lot of talent there. In the last test versus Australia, yeah, it was my favourite iteration of the New Zealand team so far. The pack looked really capable of going toe-to-toe with anyone. Takiaho at hooker was a revelation. You know, the find of the tournament, I think, certainly for New Zealand. Jordan showing what he can do as well. Showing, those two certainly have absolutely top-level talent. Geordie Barrett, moving into 12, definitely he should get another shot at inside centre. He was super impressive. And I think we might see a couple of other guys coming into this team later on. For example, when Blackadder is fit, I definitely think there's a bit more talent to come back in. So yeah, I think the talent is there. Is it quite what it was in the, back-to-back Rugby World Cup era? Well, maybe that's unattainable, but it's certainly very good. Now on to a bit of a contentious one, and its reffing is still an issue at number 4 there on my points. There's room for improvement for absolutely certain. Are there more bad calls than in the past? I don't know, or does the modern game just have great angles and picks up all these mistakes? You let me know what you think. But certainly reading your comments in the videos are absolutely fascinating. I tend to not talk too much about referees, because there's nothing the players can particularly do about it, but it's certainly an interesting point in the game. Now, sometimes referees, TMOs, they just make bad calls, and to some degree we have to live with it, but at some point, it's going to have to be unacceptable as well, and where is that point? Now, one thing we obviously can't accept is if a referee is actually biased, and there's no way of knowing it, but certainly it would be unacceptable, even if it's unconsciously, they've got preconceptions about a team, an emotional response to a player, something like that. And certainly starting YouTube, I've definitely got a strong awareness that certain fans feel there is a bias amongst referees. I don't know if there is or not, but certainly amongst some South African fans I found, they think there maybe is a bit too much of a bias towards them. They're getting some of the worst calls. I don't know whether it's true or not. Let me know what you think. And what's great about you guys as the viewers of this channel is you can have these controversial debates in a constructive manner. So I'd love to know what you think about that. But certainly reading comments, watching the Rugby Championship, yeah, getting that vibe, definitely. Point number 5, set piece and tight play, it's still king. The Rugby Championship is not short of phenomenal running tries, and long may it continue. Individual brilliance, absolutely. But that traditional hard graft has been key to most of the big wins. I mean, for example, New Zealand only really started to shine when their scrum and line-out woes were put to bed. A good example for South Africa is their biggest weapon is still their maul. Doesn't always guarantee victory, but it certainly helps. Absolutely terrifying when it gets going. Australia, we saw smashed Argentina up front, won the game there. Then the reverse was done to them by Argentina in the second game. It's a classic adage, of course, the forwards decide who wins and the backs by how many, and it still seems very true. Now, point 6 is won around South Africa, linked to point 5. They are possibly the best at squeezing teams to death like no one else. Like a boa constrictor, when they think they've got you on the back foot, they can just pin you in your half and scrum you and maul you to death and just bash around the fringes. No problem at all for them. The forwards, maybe they haven't really had any breakthrough forwards. Lowe didn't break through. They didn't even select Roos. But, the forwards they have are doing the job. And if they can get everyone fit, I don't think it's a problem. I mean, they gave a few a good go. Dwayba was given plenty of chances at hooker and found wanting. But the forwards they have can absolutely strangle you to death. Now, on the flip side, point 7, still about South Africa, is about their attack. And when they opened up, do you know what? I absolutely loved it. I still think it's a bit too infrequent. I still think they can do it more. They've got the players. They show they can offload and play some fantastic rugby. I just think they played a little safe, maybe a little bit too much. And maybe they could have won the championship if they did chance their arm a little bit more. Obviously, it's a double-edged sword because you can concede points when you play a bit looser. Anyway, wing options look pretty good. We've got Moody, Arenza look pretty decent. Colby's going to come back, which is great. At 10, they found a few options. Willemse, probably their most creative attacking 10, probably more so than Pollard even. We'll see also Stain play at 10, maybe not quite as attacking, but got a great boot on him. So they did add a little bit of depth. For example, they tried a few in the centres, although I don't think Creel's quite up to Am, so I think Delandy and Am they found that Hendrickse can do a good job on the international stage, but not as exciting as de Klerk. So definitely some depth, but I think they can definitely open up a bit more in that back line. Point 8 is the old discipline. It can absolutely kill teams, and especially Australia, Argentina, I felt, led to some of their big defeats in that last game. Australia didn't even give themselves a chance with their discipline. And often, it's completely avoidable stuff. You can coach it. I think that's Rennie's biggest job fix for Australia. Suggestions that maybe Australia have a bit of an attitude problem. White's back chat, Swain's indiscipline, Foley ignoring the ref. I don't know, let me know if you think that isn't as much as we think, but I think maybe they do have a bit of an issue there with that indiscipline, maybe with a bit of attitude. It can be fixed, but it certainly hampered them. Point 9 is entertainment, and the Tri-Nations, as it was, Rugby Championship now, has had that reputation of being the most entertaining competition. And I still think that's the case. The Six Nations has improved its entertainment factor, but this year's Rugby Championship was not boring. No games were boring. The Rugby Championship is alive and well on the pitch. And even though South Africa, don't play the fling it around style a lot, I think they really add to that excitement. They need to retain them. Losing them to the Six Nations would probably ruin both tournaments. Could they add Japan and still, create that competition and quality? Certainly they'd be exciting. I don't know. I'd like to know what you think about that. But at the moment, Rugby Championship is delivering on the pitch. Now, point 10, I think we saw it highlighted that having the best players doesn't mean you automatically win. Strategy, emotion played a massive factor in this championship. For example, New Zealand's comeback win against South Africa seemed almost pure emotion. Argentina still crazy reliant, I think, on high levels of emotion and national pride when they produce their best displays. And as I touched on earlier, New Zealand's turnaround was a lot to do with strategy. For example, Smith coming in, instructing Moanga to look for more tactical kicking options, more variations, rather than just the original strategy Foster seemed to have of fling it around from absolutely everywhere. So no doubt strategy is going to be huge come the World Cup, and some teams will even have specific strategies just for one opposition. Anyway, guys, that's my top 10. Let me know what you thought you learnt from the Rugby Championship. Pop it all below. Love to read it, and I'll catch you next time.